There is a place on the map worth more than entire armies. A place for which empires bleed. Trade routes rise and fall. And entire civilizations prosper or collapse, depending on who controls it. In the 16th century, that place was a small, barren island. No vegetation. No fresh water. Sitting in the middle of a scorching gulf. And yet, it was known as the jewel in the ring of the world. Its name was Hormuz. In September of 1507, a man named Afonso de Albuquerque sailed toward that island with only 6 ships and 500 men. Waiting on the other side was a city defended by 15,000 to 20,000 warriors. Fortified walls, artillery, and the absolute certainty that no one would be mad enough to attack it. He attacked anyway, not because he had enough strength, but because he understood something no other European captain had yet realized. Whoever controls Hormuz controls the gateway to the east, and whoever controls that gateway controls the world. This is the story of the man who almost did. The furnace at the center of the world. To understand what was at stake in Hormuz, you first have to understand how the world worked in the year 1507. There was no oil. There was no modern globalization. But there was something that drove empires with the same force: spices. Pepper, cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon. What we think of today as ordinary seasonings were once worth more than gold. In Europe, they preserved food, scented homes, and displayed wealth. A single sack of pepper could pay a soldier's wages for months. And nearly all of it, the spices of India, the textiles of Persia, the pearls of the Gulf, the porcelain of China, the horses of Arabia, passed through a single point. A tiny island in the middle of a scorching gulf. Hormuz. The Portuguese chronicler João de Barros described the city with a phrase that echoed through history. The world is a ring, and Hormuz is the jewel set within it. And it was no exaggeration. The streets of Hormuz were filled with Persian, Arab, Indian, Turkish, Armenian, Venetian, and Jewish merchants. They traded day and night. The city possessed no natural resources, no fresh water, no farmland, no local food supply. Everything had to be imported. Yet it was one of the wealthiest places on earth. Because Hormuz's geography was its fortune. Whoever controlled that island taxed nearly every ship entering or leaving the Persian Gulf. It was the toll gate of the East. On the other side of the world, in Lisbon, a king named Manuel I had realized this. He also understood that Portugal, a small kingdom of barely 1 million people, would never dominate Asia through brute force alone. The solution was brilliant in its simplicity. Do not conquer territories. Conquer the choke points. Seal the passages. Control the straits. Force commerce to flow through your hands. And to carry out that vision, King Manuel chose the right man. Afonso de Albuquerque was 54 years old in the year 1507. His body bore the scars of decades of warfare in North Africa and the Indian Ocean. His strategic mind was matched by few commanders of his time. He did not see the East as a land to plunder. He saw it as a system to control. 3 keys. 3 points on the map. Goa, the Portuguese capital in India. Malacca, the gateway to trade with China and the Spice Islands. And Hormuz, the lock on the Persian Gulf. To secure those 3 positions was to sever the Muslim trade routes that carried spices to the Mediterranean. It was to force the world to trade with Portugal. It was to transform a small European kingdom into the arbiter of global commerce. In the year 1507, Albuquerque set out to make that vision a reality. With 6 ships, with 500 men, into an ocean dominated by sultanates, empires, and fleets far larger than his own. Blood, dust, and betrayal. Albuquerque did not sail directly to Hormuz. First, he swept along the coast of Oman, cities that at the time belonged to the kingdom of Hormuz. Some chose to negotiate and provide supplies. Others resisted. Those cities were bombarded, plundered, and subdued. Albuquerque's reputation spread across the Persian Gulf long before he arrived. There was even a rumor, recorded by contemporary chroniclers, that the Portuguese ate human flesh. Such was the terror they left in their wake. When his fleet finally appeared on the horizon of Hormuz in September of the year 1507, The city's defenders attempted to intimidate him with war drums and a large fleet. It did not work. Inside the city, real power did not rest with the young king Saifuddin. It rested with his vizier, Kojiter, a Bengali eunuch who controlled the entire political machinery of Hormuz. He was a seasoned and calculating statesman, a man with no intention of surrendering without a fight. Albuquerque sent a simple proposal: accept vassalage to the King of Portugal and pay an annual tribute. The response was evasive. Kojiter was buying time while organizing the city's defenses. Albuquerque waited no longer. The next day, his flagship opened fire. What followed was an artillery battle inside a crowded harbor. Thick smoke, the deafening roar of cannon fire, ships sinking beneath the waves. Portuguese naval artillery was superior to that of any power in the Indian Ocean. Hormuz felt that superiority with every broadside. The battle lasted roughly 6 hours. The fleet of Hormuz was larger in number, but poorly organized. The Portuguese ships, smaller and more maneuverable, coordinated their attacks with surgical precision. Enemy vessels were sunk or captured one after another. Chaos consumed the defending fleet. From the city walls, the population watched in horror as their navy collapsed before their eyes. At last, Kojiter raised the white flag above the palace. Hormuz agreed to pay tribute, exempt Portuguese merchants from customs duties, and authorize the construction of a fortress, Our Lady of the Conception. It seemed like a historic victory, and it was. But what happened next nearly destroyed everything. Albuquerque's captains had no interest in building fortresses in a scorching desert. They wanted loot, not stone walls. They wanted to return to India. They had crossed half the world, conquered islands and cities, and now, as their reward, they found themselves breaking rock beneath a merciless sun, with little fresh water, inadequate food, and no reinforcements in sight. One by one, the ships deserted. By the month of April in the year 1508, Albuquerque was left with only 2 vessels. No supplies, no reinforcements, not enough men to garrison the unfinished fortress. He was forced to abandon Hormuz. The fortress remained half-built. Portuguese control existed only on paper, and Hormuz became Hormuz once again, free, wealthy, and now convinced that the Portuguese could be defeated from within. Albuquerque sailed back to India, not as a victor, but as a man who knew he would have to return. The third key, and the price of closing the world. Over the next several years, Albuquerque turned his vision into reality. In the year 1510, he conquered Goa. In the year 1511, he captured Malacca, the greatest spice market in the world. 2 of the 3 keys were now in Portuguese hands. Only the third remained. In February of the year 1515, Afonso de Albuquerque departed Goa for the last time. This time, there would be no improvisation. 27 ships, 1,500 Portuguese soldiers, 700 Malabar warriors. This was not an exploratory expedition. It was a war fleet. But there was something the numbers did not reveal. Albuquerque was dying. Contemporary accounts suggest that his health had already begun to deteriorate significantly by that year. He knew his time was running out, not only strategically, but physically. In Hormuz, the political landscape had changed. The young king Turan Shah ruled under the shadow of a new Persian vizier, Reis-Hamed, a ruthless man who wielded near-absolute authority over the king and represented the greatest obstacle to Portuguese suzerainty. Albuquerque identified the problem immediately. What happened next was as calculated as it was brutal. Albuquerque summoned the king and demanded the vizier's presence. The moment Reis-Hamed entered the chamber, he was cut down by Albuquerque's men. A coup d'état executed in seconds. In front of a terrified king. No battle. No siege. Not a single cannon fired. With the vizier gone and resistance impossible, Turan Shah accepted Portuguese vassalage without conditions. On the first day of April in the year 1515, Portuguese forces entered Hormuz. Portugal demanded full payment of all revenues owed since the year 1508. Construction resumed on the unfinished fortress and was finally completed. It was renamed the Fort of Our Lady of the Conception. Albuquerque had closed the map. The 3 keys were now Portuguese. A small kingdom of barely 1 million people had built the greatest system of maritime control the world had yet seen. Without conquering continents. Without vast armies. Only through fortresses in the right places, superior artillery, and the vision of a single man. But Albuquerque would never see Lisbon again. He died in December of the year 1515 while returning to Goa. Before his death, he learned that King Manuel I, under the influence of rivals at court, had officially replaced him with a personal enemy. The ingratitude of the crown reached him before death did. The last letter he wrote to the king ended with words that chroniclers preserved for posterity. "I am at war with men for the love of your highness, and at war with your highness for the love of men." He died without knowing that what he had built would endure for more than a century. Hormuz remained under Portuguese control until the year 1622, when an alliance between Persia and the English East India Company employed the very tactics Albuquerque himself had pioneered: superior artillery, local allies, and a prolonged blockade to seize the fortress. The irony was perfect and cruel. Portugal lost Hormuz in much the same way it had won it. But that is another story. In the year 1507, Afonso de Albuquerque understood a truth that has never grown old. The world has choke points, places through which everything must pass: commerce, power, history itself. Whoever controls those points does not need to win every battle. They simply need to be standing in the right place. In the year 1507, the commodity was spice. Today it is oil. The strait is the same. The logic is the same. Portugal was the first empire to prove it, and paid a heavy price to learn that no system of control lasts forever. If this story changed the way you see the world, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow along so you do not miss the next episode. Because history itself did not end.